We may never again in this parliament, certainly, and however long we're here, have an MPI after a referendum. I think we can all agree it's going to be a long time before we have one again. So it is right and proper that we discuss it in this place. You may not like the words of the motion, but I thought maybe in your party room or in other places within these buildings you're having these conversations. And if you're not, can I suggest that you do? Because 4 out of 5 of your own seats had a different view to you. And that's fine, that's okay. I remember when I expressed my view quite early on, many of you and your supporters said, "Oh, be careful, Wallahan," use my own name, "be careful, you're out of touch with your electorate." That's not a fair thing to say to anyone, and I won't say it to you. All of us, we owe 3 things to our constituencies. We owe our best efforts, we owe our selfless judgment, and we owe our honest belief. And if our honest belief is different to others, particularly on a referendum, that's okay. But what are people asking us to do? To be dishonest? To be follow and not lead? I'm sure you all passionately believed in this, and I commend you for it. And people on our side, like my friend, the member for Bass, she passionately believed in it, and I commend her for it. That's all we owe our electorates. But we have to say, how did the goodwill of this nation, when the idea was presented, go from close to 70% in the polls to 38%? How did that happen? Because if you haven't taken the Australian people with you on this issue, we need you to take them on important issues of national security and economics. Of course we want to hold you to account, and of course we want to be over there one day, but we also need you to succeed in the national interest. Now, you embrace the moments when people on our side cross the floor or speak out against our own party, and there's a politics and theatre in that. But none of you do that, and if you did, you'd be kicked out. So maybe that extreme discipline that you have within your own party doesn't help you all the time.
You may wish to direct your comments through the
Yes,
chair.
I acknowledge, Deputy Speaker. Maybe that discipline doesn't help all the time. And perhaps this is the time for some honest reflection about what went wrong. Now, we've heard commentators give the various reasons why people voted as they did. And they're pretty clear. There's 4 of them. The first was on division. And there is value in our common humanity and dignity. And when that was expressed in various different ways, where there was "don't divide us on ancestry" or "don't divide us on race," none of us like the word race. It's an outdated term. But that made sense to people. It made sense to people that no one is inferior, no one is superior. And the argument that there was a difference between race and indigeneity or an ancestry, it was a distinction without a difference. It just was. That wasn't misinformation or disinformation. It was a distinction without a difference. And on detail, the detail mattered, and there's a good comparison. You can go to the 99 referendum and say, for tactical reasons, don't put a bill before people because they'll split. But you could also go to the same-sex marriage plebiscite where a bill was on offer, where people looked at it and said, I actually like what I see. If there was a bill sitting somewhere in this building on a G drive, it would have been constructive for the Australian people to have seen it. It would have been constructive for the committee, the Joint Select Committee, to have compared it to the model that was on offer. Maybe it wasn't going to match. Maybe it wasn't fit for purpose. That would have been helpful. And in terms of legal risk, all of the legal experts agreed that the scope was extremely broad, extremely broad. They disagreed on the likelihood of risk, but they agreed on the consequences of risk. And I think maybe that was a key turning point where, in the Joint Select Committee, we could have properly sought to address that risk where there was disagreement, instead of having a ticking exercise where you say, oh, it's good to go. That's not how the law works. That's why the High Court has 7 positions. They often split 4-3, and former Chief Justices French and former Justice Hayne, they've often been in the minority and been just as passionate with their view. I think it was a mistake to have sat in that committee and just to have accepted that as a given. That's why we have courts of appeal. Law is about disagreeing and getting to the truth. And finally, I'll say this. Our constitution is a structure of our democracy. It's not where we solve problems. We can still solve these problems here and in other places, and let's do it.